Hello everyone, I'm back from my vacation and I'd like to welcome you to the Morro Bay Speedway. This is the third course in the chase for my Toy Box Racing Cup, and I think it's one of the most creative tracks that I've built. I'll be teaching you some new tricks with this course that you can apply in your own races, but first I want to drive this new course so you can see it in action. Joining me today is the host for this course, Nemo. He'll be driving Mickey's car today, and I know he's eager to get started, so let's get this race underway. All right, here we go. And our first obstacle, the rolling mines again.
What's going on?
They got Mater. But kind of a little bit different take on what I did in the Hawaiian course. And here we have the graveyard of ships. And now we're coming up to our next obstacle, which is a huge jump similar to what we see in the Sugar Rush course in Toy Box Speedway. And we find ourselves now in these underwater ruins. Whoa!
Why are you being so mean? Oh, am I glad to see you.
And just like that, I'm in fourth place. We'll catch up. All right, lap 2. And this time, let's take the hidden shortcut off to the left, which avoids the mines. This is something that the AI cars will not take because of the way I've built it, and I'll show you how I did that later in the video. Once more through the graveyard of ships. See if we can catch up to Mater. And we'll take another shortcut here, which will allow us to bypass a lot of track. Unfortunately, we also missed the weapon generators, so the guys behind us have weapons. But at least we have a chance to be ahead of them. And just like that, I'm in first place. Of course, that can all change in a moment. Whoa! Final lap. Better pick up some weapons this time. Whoa! And the jump. Whoa, I'm off course. Oh man, that was rude. And just like that, I'm back in third. Oh, I got weapons this time though. Oh, that doesn't help me. Unless I can get ahead of them. Alright, one more trick. There's a shortcut here through the whale's mouth. And if we do this just right, we have some cannons that'll get us ahead. And some speed boosts. Couldn't quite catch him. Oh well, that wasn't a bad attempt. Whoa! Whoops. Well, that's my Morro Bay Speedway course. I really like the underwater theme, and with the final console update that added all of the Morro Bay building pieces and the terrain style, which applies to the terrain and the plants and the racetrack, and of course the sky, it just looks beautiful. But now that you've seen it, I'll show you how to start building it. And if you don't want to stick around for the build part of this course, I hope you'll leave a comment before you go to let me know what you think of my new race course. Now on with the build. Okay, here we are in an empty toy box. And the first thing I'm going to do is put down the boom box, because I'm going to need to turn off the music. So we'll drop this right here for right now. And then I'll come out of the editor. And I could put down a sky changer and use the Morro Bay sky, but I'm actually going to use my power disc for Nemo's Seascape. I just like that a little bit better. It's more blue, not quite as greenish. So I'll put that on the base. And that changes the sky. And now I'll just go ahead and make sure the music is off. So under Properties, it's a nice thing to listen to, but I don't want that distracting you guys. Okay, and now that we have the sky, we can determine the orientation of the toy box. And so with this orientation, I have chosen to have the track start going in that direction. And so let's go ahead and figure out where we need to put the track. So I'm going to come out of Spark mode, and I don't really like this really tall terrain piece that we start with. So I'm going to come up to the terrain drawer, and we're going to start with this large flat block instead. And I'll put that down right over here. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because we're not going to fill up the toy box anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and set the theme on this to be the Morro Bay Seascape. And you need the Finding Dory playset to unlock the Morro Bay building pieces and this theme, this style. If you don't have that playset, or if you're on the PC, you can still build this race course, but you're going to have to use a different theme. And I don't really have a good recommendation for you. If you have the Nemo power discs, you could use that. Or you could just use a different theme than the underwater theme altogether. You could put it in space, or Alice in Wonderland, or any theme really works. Alright, we'll go ahead and delete that terrain piece. And for right now, we'll move these things over here onto that terrain piece. Okay, so the track is going to start on the edge of this terrain block, but I don't really want to use this flat edge because it's kind of boring. And so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put down a couple extra pieces to figure out where my racetrack should begin. So we're going to come up to the terrain drawer, and we're going to go left to the small terrain cube. And I want to place this right off the end of this block, lined up with that edge in this corner. So just like this. And you can see these edges are flush, and these edges are flush. So it's sticking off this corner, the way you see it there. Okay? And then we're going to keep going left, and I'm going to put down the first of the canyon edges on this, just so that I can figure out where to put the track. And again, I would normally build the terrain and the racetrack at the same time, but since I'm building this for you and I've already built this, I don't need to figure out all of this. I just need to get enough terrain to get started, because I already know where all the terrain has to go. So I'm going to line up this piece with the edge of the big terrain block and the left edge of the little block right there. Okay? So that's where that needs to go. And again, this is critical because when we put down the racetrack, the terrain underneath it needs to line up. So we're going to come to the Racetrack Pieces drawer, and we're going to begin with the wide starting track line. And I'm going to line this up with the edge of the terrain piece here, like that, and right up against that little block, actually right like that. That's how that needs to go. So the little block needs to be sitting on the terrain, or on the racetrack. Okay? And so this is what we have so far. So there's a little bit of the edge that you can see, and the advantage of this is that as you're driving along here, the edge of the road isn't straight. You can see this kind of curves a little bit along here. It has a little bit of interest to it. Alright, so now we can go ahead and take this little terrain cube out, and let's go ahead and set the theme for the racetrack. And once again, I'm going to set it to be the Morro Bay Seascape. Set that to be the theme. And so there is our starting line. Alright, so then we're going to come over to the long wide racetrack, and that is going to be the next piece we put down. And I'm going to put 2 of these like that. And we'll go ahead while we got this selected and put 1 more on the other side of the racetrack. And then we're going to scroll over to the left to this split piece and connect that up, and we'll do this on either side like that. And then we're going to come over to the racetrack curve, and we'll start building off in the direction that we race. So we're going to put a curve in here, followed by a very long racetrack, like that. And then we're going to curve around the reef, like this, and like this. Then we'll come back to the very long racetrack, and I'm going to put down 2 of these. Like that. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and just keep building. Let's build the main section first, and then I'll do the side path, because I think that will make a little bit more sense. So we'll come back over to the wide track, and the reason I'm putting the wide track in here is it gives the player the opportunity to dodge those mines, and that's really important. Plus the fact that I've put vehicle weapon generators right before this section, so you're dodging mines, you're dodging missiles, you're dodging all kinds of stuff. And then we'll put 2 more very long pieces in here like that. Okay, so that is it for the main section along this edge of the toy box. Now for the side path, this is something that I kind of want to be a little bit hidden from players, and so I could use this Racetrack Junction and put this in here. The problem with using that, though, is that the AI cars can also use that. The way this piece works, the AI cars would know about this side path, and they can choose to use it. And I don't really want to give the AI cars that advantage, because I don't want the player following them and notice they go off to the left. I kind of want this to be kind of a hidden side path. And so what you can do, though, the game as you're racing will allow you to kind of drift a little to the left or right of the racetrack. And we can take advantage of that by putting down a racetrack piece alongside the track. This is not connected to the rest of the track, so the game start piece over there that's running the game logic doesn't know about this road because it's not connected to that. So the AI cars won't use it. But it's here, and the player can drive on it. And because it's so close to the main track, the AI will allow the player to follow this track because it's not too far. If we start trying to take this way out here, then that's going to be a problem because we're getting too far now from the main track. But as long as you're driving right alongside the main track, it doesn't have a problem with it. And so that's really helpful to know. All right, and then I want this to kind of go up and over where the mines are coming out. So we're going to use this bowed racetrack ramp, followed by the flat piece, followed by this arch. And then we'll put two very long straight pieces in here. And I really like this technique. I first saw it used, there was a YouTuber, I forget his name, but I'll see if I can find the link to it and share it on my blog. But he really took advantage of this technique and did a lot of really interesting race courses where the player, oops, not that one. Don't want the steep one. I want the plain one. But he did a number of race courses where he really used this to his advantage and built a lot of side paths that went over and under and around the main track and gave the player the opportunity to go places that the AI cars didn't. And I thought that was just very creative. And so I'm kind of showing you that here in my course by doing something similar. All right. And now something isn't quite lining up the way I wanted to. Hang on just a second. Yeah, this piece here should have been back further. Let me go offline and take a look at this, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, I'm back, and I realized what I forgot to do. Before I hit the Y, there's a piece I needed to put in here. And so it's actually the main track that's wrong. And I needed to put in this racetrack piece. This is what I forgot to put in. And so I'm just going to drop that there for right now to serve as a spacer. And we'll put another one in over here. And that'll just tell me how far I need to bring this piece down. So that should have been right there. That's why I was confused. So then the rest of these pieces on the main track, I just need to slide them down. I wondered why it wasn't connecting in the right place on the end. And that would do it. And you might be wondering, why am I being so picky about that? Well, the terrain that's going to be fitted around this kind of depends on these pieces being placed in just the right spot. And if they aren't, the terrain that goes under and on and around these track pieces won't line up. All right, so there we go. That's the mines section. And then we come out over here onto this end. And that's about a block off over here. All right, so now we can go ahead and continue building. So that's the first of the new techniques that I wanted to show you in this new course, is that you can build side paths like that that only the players can use. And that can be really helpful. And again, I'll try to find you the link to that other YouTuber from a number of years ago, because he built some really brilliant track designs using that technique. All right, so 2 very long racetrack pieces followed by a curve. And then we're going to have 2 more very long racetrack pieces. And of course, this section is where we have the graveyard of ships. And then we come into the canyon. And now we're coming up to the curve that leads to the big jump. And the idea here is that we're going to use the same technique that I taught you in the very first video in this series, where we've got 2 tracks, one underneath, one overhead. And so we're going to go ahead and put down a track intersection here. All right. And then we're going to come back and connect up a long section, a long racetrack on the end of that. And I'm going to put one here and one on the left going toward the mines over there. All right. And then we'll come back to the curve. And I'm building the underlying track first. This is the one that's connected to the racetrack start piece. This is the one that the AI cars are going to follow. It's not the one they're going to drive on. We'll go ahead and connect up a curve. And then another curve. And then another curve. Okay? So this is the road that the cars are following, that the AI is following. And then I'm going to put one more racetrack over here on this side. Okay, now the actual path that the cars will be driving on, that's going to be this racetrack curve left. And we're going to drop this right here, right over top of where the other one would sit. And I've dropped it a little bit below the terrain just so I can make sure it lines up. And when I raise it up, you can see, using the same technique I taught you in the first video, we're setting this on top of the track, so it is not connected to the main track, but the cars will drive on it. And then we're going to slide this around and connect to that. We'll slide this around and connect to that. Just like so. And then we get to the top of the ramp. And so you can see this curve lines up perfectly with the curve underneath it. So the cars will drive on this ramp and they'll be perfectly happy to do it, because they're not going to know that they're driving on this. They're going to be thinking they're driving on the track below. And then we're going to use a short racetrack on the end, followed by the bowed racetrack ramp. And we're not going to connect this up to the end of this. We're actually going to come about 1/3 of the way back. So about like that. And if you're not quite sure where that placement is, we can adjust this once we get the terrain in, because the slope for the canyon is actually going to slope upward. So we're not going to be right over the edge of this track. We're going to be back a little bit. But that sets up the big jump, and as you can see, you're jumping over the track you jumped over below, that you drove on below, and coming down and crashing over here. Now at this point, we're entering the area where the ruins are, so I'm going to change the road theme, and we're going to use Princess Kita's World from the Atlantis movie. I'll set that to be my theme. And I'll wait a moment for that to update. There we go. And then I'll pick that piece up, put it down, and we'll drop a second one over here. And then I'll use a racetrack left piece. And if they went straight, that would be the little hidden area, hidden path that we're going to build. And then we're going to do the racetrack curve right piece, and that's going to sit right on the edge of that. So, like that. And then pick up this racetrack curve. This will connect up just like that. This one like that. And then we'll come down back to the main level. Like that. And you might be wondering, why is it going up and then coming back down? Well, this for the little hidden path that I've got. The second shortcut, you go underneath here and underneath the road and come around a corner and reconnect onto the road over here. The difference between this shortcut, though, and the one that we built before is you'll notice I'm not putting down any track. So you don't even have to have track for the car to run on. That kind of makes it a little bit more hidden even, because you don't see the track. So it doesn't look like that should be a place where the player can go, but it is. So a very long piece then, followed by a long piece, and then once again the piece that curves left, and we're going up. So like this. And then we need another long piece. This gets us halfway up to the level of the bridge, followed by a very long piece, followed by another curving ramp off to the left, like that. And then we have another long piece, followed by a very long piece, followed by the bridge. All right, and then a medium piece, and a curve. And once you hit the curve, then you're going to descend again. So we'll come to the arch, followed by a flat piece. We're only going to go halfway back down to the main level, like that. Come back to the very long piece, and we're going to put down 2 of these, followed by our curve. And now we're coming to the end of the lap. So we come up to the curve, we add on a long piece. This is over by where the whale is. And then we come back and do another arch, and we descend to the main level. And then a bow. Now we're at the main level of the track. All right. 2 very long pieces, and then a racetrack piece. And at this point we're going to change the texture back because we're entering the little cave before the end. So we're going to change it back to the Morro Bay Seascape. And so as you're looking at the course in this direction, when you're standing over at the starting line, you don't see the ruins texture. So you have no idea that that's there. It's kind of meant to be a surprise for the player. You're driving along, you make that big jump, and then whoa, all of a sudden, where are all these ruins coming from? This is kind of cool. It's part of being underwater and just exploring what's there. All right, a medium piece connected to the end of that, followed by 2 very long pieces. And if we've done this right, that should connect up to the Y here at the start. And so there is our racetrack. And let me just kind of zoom out so you can get a good look at it. That's what we've got. Pretty cool. Alright, well I think that's enough for today. Next time I'll start blocking in the terrain for the course and fitting that around the racetrack. That might take 2 or 3 videos to do because there's a lot of terrain pieces in this course that we need to deal with. But before you go, please hit the like button if you enjoyed my new Morro Bay Speedway course today, and leave a comment to let me know. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you enjoy what I'm doing with Disney Infinity, just click my photo in the lower right corner and then you'll never miss an episode. Well, that's all for me today. Have a great weekend.